Chosen one, I need to talk to you today. Not with just anyone who clicked on this video by accident, but with you, chosen one, who is here because something inside you knew you needed to hear this. You've been through days that weighed more than you can describe. Nights when the silence of your room echoed back the emptiness you felt inside. Moments when you looked up at the sky, not with quiet faith, but with eyes full of tears and a question you barely had the courage to form: God, where are you? That silence carries a specific kind of weight, different from any other kind of pain. It's not the pain of a visible loss. It's the anguish of crying out, of praying, of weeping, of fasting, of believing with everything you have and hearing nothing back. It's the silent torment of wondering whether your voice is reaching anywhere at all, or whether it simply rises and dissolves into the air like smoke that leaves no trace. And the worst part comes when the people around you seem to have every prayer answered while yours remains suspended. You see testimonies, miracles, stories of blessing happening everywhere. And there you are, trying to understand why it seems to work for everyone except you. And then comes the most dangerous thought of all. Maybe I don't deserve it. Maybe God just isn't listening to me. Chosen one, I need to stop that thought right now. The silence of God is not the same as the absence of God. Those two things look the same on the outside, but they are radically opposite in their essence. And confusing one for the other is the mistake that has destroyed the faith of many people whom God had not abandoned. He was preparing them. Think about how surgery works. Before a doctor operates, there is an entire preparation happening behind the scenes. The patient may wait days without seeing any visible movement, but an entire team is working, calculating, preparing for the exact moment when the intervention will happen safely and precisely. The silence in the hallway is not a sign that no one is taking care of you. It's a sign that the care is happening at a level the patient cannot see. That is exactly how God works in your life. While you interpret the silence as neglect, He is moving pieces you don't even know exist. He is closing doors that would have destroyed you in ways you never could have predicted. He is preparing a foundation that, if handed over right now, you simply would not have the capacity to sustain. Think about Joseph, that young man who received a dream from God and shortly after was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, wrongfully imprisoned, forgotten for years. Anyone looking from the outside would say without hesitation, God abandoned that man. But God had not abandoned Joseph. He was building Joseph. Every humiliation was a lesson no school could have taught. Every cell was a chamber of character formation. Every day of waiting was preparation for the greatest position he never could have imagined holding. And when God said now, an entire nation was saved because of one man who knew how to wait without losing his faith. And do you think it will be any different for you? That prayer you prayed alone, crying at 3 a.m. with the faucet running so no one could hear, it was heard. Every word, every sob, every time you wanted to give up and didn't, nothing passed unnoticed before the eyes of God. And while you thought you were being ignored, the silence was working inside you, pulling out roots that would have poisoned the blessing that was on its way. Building a faith that doesn't need proof to keep standing, shaping you from the inside in a way that only a patient process is capable of producing. Every diamond goes through pressure before it shines. Every sword passes through fire before it cuts. And every chosen one passes through the desert before entering the promised land. There are no shortcuts. There is no buying the result without paying the price of formation. What you are living right now is not the end of your story. It is the heaviest chapter before the turning point. And that turning point is already closer than you think, because God would not prepare you with such care only to leave you in the middle of the road. He does not invest in those He plans to abandon. And you, chosen one, were chosen before you ever opened your mouth to ask. Because this is the truth that will completely change the way you see your own story. You were not chosen after you proved something. You were not chosen because you prayed correctly, because you were faithful enough, because you accumulated spiritual merit over the years. You were chosen before your first prayer, before your first mistake, before you even understood what it meant to believe in anything. God already had your name. He already had your destiny mapped out. He already had the answer prepared before you even formed the question. And that changes everything. Because when you understand that you were chosen before you ever asked, you stop treating your prayer like a desperate attempt to convince God of something. You stop praying like someone begging a distant judge. You start praying like someone accessing what has already been reserved, like someone unlocking a door that already had your key on the inside. Your prayer didn't surprise God. He was not in heaven when you prayed and thought, wow, didn't see that coming. He knew. He always knew. Every detail of what you asked for, every specific thing you carry in your heart, every dream you are afraid to even say out loud because it seems too big. God knows all of it before you do. And He doesn't just know it, He authored it. That desire you feel so deeply that it aches, it was planted by God. That vision that won't leave your mind, no matter how hard reality tries to erase it, it has a divine origin. Chosen one, God does not place a dream in your heart to torture you with something that will never come to pass. He places exactly what He has already set apart for you. The desire is the map. The longing you feel is a clue pointing to what is already reserved in the supernatural, waiting to manifest in the natural. But here I need to be straight with you because you deserve honesty and not just comfort. Being chosen does not mean the absence of struggle. It does not mean an easy road. It does not mean you will wake up tomorrow and everything will be resolved just because you watched this video and felt moved. Being chosen means that the struggle you are going through has a purpose that most of the people around you will not be able to see. It means that every obstacle in your path is not evidence that you took a wrong turn. It is evidence that you are on exactly the right path, and the enemy knows that better than you do. Nobody pursues something without value. Nobody tries to destroy what is not a threat. And if you have been attacked, pressured, knocked down over and over again, that is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that what is inside you is powerful enough to frighten what is working against you. And what heaven calls alignment, you have been calling waiting. You look at your process and see delay. Heaven looks at the same process and sees perfect preparation. You look and see wasted time. God looks and sees invested time. Every day that passed without a visible answer was a day when something invisible was being adjusted, fitted, prepared with a precision that the human mind cannot calculate. Think about an orchestra before a major concert. Each musician arrives, picks up their instrument, and begins to tune. To someone walking in from outside who has never witnessed this process, it sounds like chaos, dissonant sounds, isolated notes, no apparent harmony. But the conductor is not disturbed because he knows that the tuning, as strange as it sounds, is what guarantees that when the music truly begins, every note will fall into exactly the right place with a perfection that will send chills through everyone who hears it. Your life right now looks like an orchestra tuning, sounds that make no sense, dissonant situations, pieces that don't fit together yet. But God, the conductor, is not disturbed. He is listening to the tuning and knows exactly when to raise the baton so that everything, absolutely everything, begins to sound like the most beautiful music you have ever heard in your life. And it is exactly when the music is about to begin that the heaviest test appears. It is not coincidence. It is not bad luck. It is a pattern. It is the way God has operated since the beginning of time, and understanding this will keep you from giving up at the worst possible moment. Because every great delivery from God comes wrapped in a test that most people would not endure. And it is not just any test. It is not a small, symbolic, easy-to-pass exam. It is the kind of test that arrives precisely when you are already at your limit, when you have already spent every last reserve of emotional strength, when you no longer have any arguments left to keep believing. It is there, right there, that God places the hardest test of your entire story. And do you know why? Because the depth of the gift must be proportional to the depth of the test. God cannot give you something at level 10 if your faith has only been tested to level 3. Not because He is cruel, but because He is wise. He knows that a level 10 blessing in the hands of a level 3 faith will destroy you. And He loves you too much to do that to you. Abraham waited decades for a son, decades of faith without evidence. decades of believing in a promise that both his own body and Sarah's contradicted every morning they woke up a little older. And when the son finally came, when Isaac was born and the promise became reality, God asked for him back. He asked for the son. He asked for the very thing that was most precious, most long awaited, most beloved. And Abraham went. Without negotiating, without pulling back, with the faith of someone who knows God's character deeply enough to obey even when they don't understand. And it was in that moment of total surrender, at that breaking point where nothing made any human sense whatsoever, that the answer was already on its way. The angel was already moving before Abraham raised the knife. The provision was already in the thicket before the sacrifice happened. God had already resolved it before Abraham reached the hardest moment. That is how it works, chosen one. The answer does not come after you pass the test. It was already prepared before the test even began. What the test does is position you to receive what was already reserved. It places you at the right angle, in the right posture, with the right heart, so that when the blessing arrives, you are facing it and not turned away from it. And I know what you are feeling right now, because this test you are living is not light. It is costing you something real. It is costing you relationships, sleep, your peace of mind. It is testing your sanity, touching the most sensitive things that exist inside of you. And at some point, you have already thought about stopping, about letting go, about saying it is no longer worth it to keep believing in a promise that seems to have no date set for its fulfillment. But you did not stop. You are here, still standing, still listening, still carrying a spark of faith that refuses to go out even after everything that has tried to extinguish it. And that, chosen one, is not weakness disguised as endurance. It is the most concrete proof that you were made for this, that the promise over your life is real enough that you simply cannot bring yourself to abandon it. Faith is not tested when everything is going well. Anyone can believe when life is easy. True faith, the faith that moves what needs to be moved, is proven precisely when nothing makes sense. And at that exact breaking point, at that moment when you have reached your absolute limit, the answer has already been on its way for longer than you realize. Chosen one, I need you to hear me with every bit of attention you still have, because what I am about to tell you is not cheap motivation. It is not empty talk designed to make you feel good for 5 minutes and then forget it. It is the reality of what is happening in your life at this exact moment, even if you are not able to see it. What seemed distant was only turning around in the backstage of the invisible. You walked through the silence. You understood that you were chosen before you ever asked. You survived the test that comes before the promise. And now, at this point where you stand, exhausted but still on your feet, your answer is not coming. It is already arriving. There is an enormous difference between those two things, and I need you to feel that difference deep in your chest. God does not run late. That is not a pretty phrase to put on a coffee mug. It is a theological reality with eternal weight. He did not arrive late in Lazarus's life. He arrived at the exact moment when a greater miracle than healing needed to happen. It was no longer about curing a sick man. It was about raising a dead man. And a man raised from the dead speaks louder than a sick man healed. The delay was not a failure on God's part. It was an amplification of the miracle. And what is happening in your life may be exactly that. What you asked for may be in the process of being replaced by something greater than you were capable of asking for. The answer that is coming may be so different and so much better than the form you imagined, that when it arrives, you will understand why it had to be this way. You will understand why the road looked like this. You will look back at every hard night, every tear, every moment you wanted to let go of everything. And you will see that every piece of that process was necessary to bring you to this point. Chosen one, God arrives at exactly the moment your faith decides not to retreat. Not when you are at your peak spiritual performance. Not when you have everything organized and your life is neatly arranged. He arrives at the moment when you, with everything stacked against you, with every reason in the world to give up, look toward the invisible and say, I still believe. It is that act of faith, small on the outside but immense on the inside, that opens what was closed and moves what was standing still. You were chosen to receive this answer, not someone with a more polished faith, not someone with a cleaner story. You, with your scars, with your doubts, with your exhaustion, with everything you have lived through up to this moment. God does not choose the perfect. He perfects the chosen, and you are being perfected right now at this very moment as you hear these words. So do not retreat. Do not let go now. Do not abandon your faith in the chapter that comes just before the turning point, because your answer is not on a distant horizon. It is rounding the corner. It is closer than your exhaustion can feel, closer than your doubt can calculate, closer than any visible evidence is showing you right now. You were chosen before you asked. You were prepared in the silence. You were proven in the test. And now you are standing, still believing, still waiting. And that is exactly what a chosen one does. The answer to your prayer is closer than you imagine, and it has your name on it. Before you close out this video, I need just one more moment with you. If what you heard today touched something inside of you, if at any point you felt like this message was made specifically for your situation, then it fulfilled the purpose God placed in it. And if it did, you cannot let it die here. Hit the like button right now. Not for the channel, but because this content needs to reach other chosen ones who are in the silence right now, thinking they have been abandoned, on the verge of giving up on a promise that is still going to come to pass. Your like puts this message in front of them, and it may be exactly what stops someone from letting go of their faith today. Subscribe to the channel, because this was just one message from an entire series of content made for you. Chosen one who did not quit. Every week there is a new word, new fire, new truth that will keep you standing when everything around you tries to knock you down. Turn on the notification bell, because you cannot afford to miss what is coming next.